So earlier this year, I lost my dad. Actually, January 4th, 2022, 2 days after his 67th birthday, he passed away from COVID. He got COVID on Christmas Day and got sick, couldn't overcome it, and passed away on January 4th. And so needless to say, it's been a interesting last few months for me, for my family, and that's why we haven't had many videos come out and everything like that. But I tell you what, it's been very therapeutic for me to go through some of his things, but it's been really neat for me. He was a constructor, a contractor, a general contractor, woodworker for 40, 45, 50 years of his life. And he loved doing it. He had a shop full of different tools. And so I thought it might be helpful not only for you to see some old school stuff, but for me as well to therapeutically kind of go through some of his things and to talk about some of the things that I remember, some of the things that I've seen him carry, and to look at my dad's EDC. So let's do it. Okay, so here's some of my dad's EDC items. He didn't carry all of these with him at all times, but very, very cool to see some of the things that he did. We'll start off very simply over here on the left with some of the books that he carried. My dad was a really good note taker. He always had a small legal pad or a thing of field notes with him, and I gave him these. And he loved space, loved Star Trek, loved all the Apollo stuff, the missions and everything. And like, he actually didn't write a whole lot down in this one. This one's fairly empty, but it was one of the last notebooks that he was using before his death. And so he always had a field notes notebook. And of course, those are staples in the EDC world as well. I carry several around with me all the time. I have this really nice Belroy field notes that I use all the time, and I just love it. It's been a really good staple for me in the last few years. Moving on to a couple of different things that he used to write with. This is just a good old construction pencil. You can find these pretty much anywhere, and you can find probably a pack of 50 of them for, $5. This was actually an old one from City Lumber Company. This was one of the places my dad worked when I was small. He worked at a lot of different places in the Huntsville, Alabama area, but this is just your standard construction pencil, and he would sharpen it with one of his knives over here. He always had a knife on him. That's where I got it from. He was the original EDC guy in my life, and so he always had a knife on him, and he always had something to sharpen his thing with. But he would always use this to mark boards. He would take me out with him on Saturdays to help him build outdoor decks and things like that. So really neat. He had a couple of them, and he had got them from all over the place. This is from Wilson Lumber Company in Huntsville, Alabama, and it was just really cool seeing some of these things and some of the ones that he's got. And I've probably got 40 more of these laying around now that I've taken from his shop. The really cool additions, and I just treasure these, are just these very skinny Cross brand pens. And that's the brand name, Cross. We've got Tactile Turn, we've got, Lamy, we've got all sorts of crazy awesome pen things now, but Cross was kind of the original brand of making really nice pens. And you can see how thin these are. These are just very thin, very skinny. One is a pencil. You can actually see here, I'll get into focus. You can actually see here it's an actual pencil. And it comes out, it's going in and out of focus, I'm sorry about that. And it's really quite nice to write with. I've been writing with it for a couple of months now, and really good. This one's in gold, of course. This one's in silver. And really, this is a ballpoint pen. It's in blue. and not fine point or anything, but again, very marvelous writing utensils. And I love the skinny. I like the skinny more than the fat. There's so many of the pens that we have these days are just fat, and I just don't know about that. But those are cross pens. This right here is just a regular old roof and stairway layout book, and had all sorts of calculations and different things in it. Turns out building stuff is, or can be, quite complex sometimes. And going through having some of these quick references, he had this in his truck, and it looks like he got plenty of use out of it. So this is Swanson's Blue Book for roof and stairway layout. Of course, he had a number of these, quite a few different numbers, rulers and different things like that. Had a huge speed square he kept with him, big triangle speed square, and not necessarily part of his everyday carry, but of course he was a woodworker, he was a construction master of all sorts of different things. Now let's get into a few of the other things. Of course, he had a fossil money clip here, and this is just a magnetic money clip, and it's very nice, very well patinaed in. I don't even really know the terminology behind that necessarily, but it's very strong magnets, and made from fossil, of course, you can see, and great quality kind of stuff. No, we don't carry a lot of cash these days. You might, I don't. But I will find an excuse to carry some cash every now and then, just so I can use his money clip. Very, very neat stuff. Padded, really nice. This is just one of your run-of-the-mill, let's buy it at Home Depot or Lowe's, just your general, just DeWalt knife. And he liked DeWalt brand quite a bit. This is just your standard flipper. And it's got it's actually pretty decent, well-worn in quality, and pretty decently sharp, but it's got a little serrated end right here. It's very chunky. It's not something you'd keep, but he was a bigger guy, and so it didn't really matter to him if things were slim or skinny or lightweight. He would just carry stuff around all the time, and he'd always have a knife on him. He usually didn't have these knives unless he was actually in construction mode, unless he had a tool belt on his waist, around his waist. He usually didn't have one of these knives on him. What he had on him was a very nice case knife. And I'm sure that you recognize case knives. They've been around for ages and ages. And this particular one has a interesting thumb finger, I don't even know what you would call that. But my dad kept his knives incredibly sharp. This could probably cut a piece of paper in midair. I mean, it's just very, very nice. So you've got to just fold it back in there. It's got this nice, probably real bone from a real animal on it. All sorts of finishing touches, and you can tell this has kind of been well worn in. This was his favorite knife. I saw him carry this, whip it out at Christmas to open gifts and all sorts of different things. This is the knife he exclusively carried for the last 5 to 10 years at least. And so you can see some of the things on here as far as when it was made. You can tell when a case knife was made by looking at, and again, if we can focus here, looking at the initials on it. On the inside, you can actually tell when it was made. And again, really, really neat stuff. Case has been making knives for quite a long time. So he had a number of other case knives that I'll share with you that wasn't in the screenshot. This is just a little bit of a cheaper knife. This is a Parker, and it's just your standard case clone, and it's got 2 blades in it. It's your standard 3-blade knife, and just your standard case clone. And these were carried by your dad and your dad's dad for generations, and they did just fine with them. This one's one of my favorites. It's got a little hook and loop right here. This is also a Case brand knife, and he had some really interesting ones. He had one with some red bones right here. He had one with a blue dyed bone on it. Very, very cool stuff. And this one's a little bit smaller as well. He never put them on a keychain or anything like that. This one is a clear ripoff of a Leatherman Micra, but somebody has rebranded it with some sort of styrofoam brand. He used to go and sell things at all sorts of different places. He would pick up promotional items from all sorts of different companies, lumber companies, materials companies, all sorts of different things. And this is clearly a Leatherman Micra clone, but again, he got it for free. And so a little $10, $20 deal he got for free. He used to carry this quite a bit all the time. Also a little Swiss Army knife clone. My dad was never one into spending money. And he used to use this right here to clip off, use the scissors. Some of this scissors actually feels a little bit better than some Swiss Army knife scissors I've used, honestly. But this is just a regular, rip off of that. And this has got just a solid metal. Probably got it for free somewhere. And again, he probably got this for free somewhere. This is one of those things that I remember all the way back from when I was a small child. Missenheimer Saw and Tool. Probably this company doesn't even exist anymore. I didn't look them up before I made this video, but this was a tape measure, and I can't take it out because it's been stuck inside of there for a long time, but it was just a little 6-foot tape measure. He would always, always, always have this in his pocket, and it has been well worn. He used it all the time to measure things. He would measure things, right, left, and center, all sorts of different ways. And he was always measuring things. And again, this is so nice and compact. I would love, if I could find another one of these, I would absolutely love it. Because I find myself needing a tape measure more often than not these days. And so again, this is some of his carry items. Thanks for taking this trip down memory lane with me. If you liked the video, of course, you know what to do. Like, subscribe. Trying to grow the channel. I know I keep saying that, and I hadn't put a video out in 3 months, but I promise there's some good content coming, so you want to be the first on that list to get those little subscription notifications. Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, any comments below, if you know of anything, any interesting history about some of the items that I just shared about my dad's EDC, feel free to share. I'd love to hear from you. Again, thanks for tuning in today.